Many people say, well, why don't the Palestinians find a Gandhi? Why don't they engage in nonviolent resistance? That used to be a kind of talking point of so-called liberal Jews in the US. Well, let's see what happened. In 2018, March 2018, the Palestinians in Gaza, attempting to break the siege of Gaza, engaged in massive, nonviolent, overwhelmingly nonviolent civil resistance. How did Israel react to that overwhelmingly nonviolent civil resistance? It was a very thorough, surprisingly thorough, I would say, UN report on the subject. It said that in the course of the Great March of Return, you might recall, because it's not yet ancient history, there were the Israeli snipers assembled along the periphery of Gaza. Who did the snipers kill? Well, according to the UN report, they targeted children, they targeted journalists, they targeted medics, they targeted disabled people. They targeted people 300 meters away from the periphery. They targeted, if you read the descriptions, and the descriptions are very vivid and detailed, they targeted people who were standing by a tree, just standing there. They targeted photographers who were just standing there, journalists and also civilian photographers. That is the reality of the state of Israel. It's very hard for, say, my generation to assimilate that reality because our view, meaning my generation and before my generation, 1 and 2 generations before, our conception of a Jew was, if you were to say the kind of prototype, it would be an Albert Einstein kind of unworldly, the hair flying out. It used to be said of Einstein that at Princeton, he was the Institute for Advanced Studies. He would walk around barefoot, and when he was told, "You're barefoot," he said, "Oh, I forgot to put on my shoes." That was the otherworldly type that was a Jew.
I should grab my dad. He's in the other room. I'm not kidding.
It was Franz Kafka, the big ears, the physically a little bit feeble. And for American Jews, the type, the prototype, and I'm not being facetious here, I do think it's accurate. This is a serious occasion, and I'll do my darndest to maintain the moral sobriety that it requires. It's Woody Allen, the horn-rimmed glasses.
Ashkenazic.
Well, you get the type, the type. And then it was just very hard to convince Jews of my generation that a Jew could do this sort of stuff. Line up along a perimeter with Gaza, this world's largest concentration camp, this world's largest open-air prison. You have a population of about a little over 1 million children who have been confined, trapped in this area. The length of a marathon, the width of half of Brooklyn, the width, not the population, the width of half of Brooklyn. And they're not going to let them out. And if they try nonviolently, peacefully to free themselves, you're going to get mowed down. Mowed down. That's the reality of Israel. And for your generation and the generation after, it's not so hard to digest, because you kind of see Israel for what it is. But my generation, the preceding ones, we didn't see what Israel for what it is. We saw Israel for what Jews were. And a Jew just didn't do those things. But when you read the human rights reports, the accounts by journalists, it really has become, I would have to say, it's become a unhinged place. If you were to ask what it most resembles, I would say it resembles South Africa during the apartheid years. It resembles the American South during the Jim Crow years, from the end of Reconstruction till the 1960s. That's what Israel is. And when I say that's what Israel is, I'm referring to the whole of the population. I don't accept the distinctions between the religious and the secular, between the right and the left. No. As a broad but accurate generalization, the Israel as it's become is very much like the American South from the end of Reconstruction till the Civil Rights Movement. Okay, so I think that's a broad overview, and now we can proceed with your viewers and listeners' questions.